Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Yes, indeed, we are back for another edition of Indie Film Reviews. This is your host, Strebo, from Mutantville.com. I make indie films and I review lots of shit. Today we're going to talk about a little blast from the past from a few years ago. For some reason I just randomly ran across this today, though I remember seeing it a little while back. So we're going to revisit it and talk about some of these points because one of the great comic book luminaries, the one and only Alan Moore, popped up out of his cave long enough to talk to IO9 or Gizmodo or whoever it was that wrote this article to say that Alan Moore advises new writers to self-publish because big publishers suck. Written by Kayla Hales Stern. Here we go. At an anti-library closure protest, local magician and comics legend Alan Moore had some surprising words for those who hope to break into the wide world of published writing. I'm just chuckling that they put local magician first, like he's a stage magician, which he's not. He's one of these guys that totally follows old beliefs, has his own serpent god that he worships. You know, he's kind of in that, I don't know if he calls it chaos magic or if it's some old form of ritual magic or what have you. Probably more wizard than stage magician. So I just think it's funny that they put that first. But the guy is a comics legend, which if you've ever graduated from reading basically comics that were geared from kids to comic stories that were more geared towards adults, at some point you came across Alan Moore's work, whether it was his seminal work on Swamp Thing, Miracle Man, The Watchmen, The Killing Joke, his later work with ABC Comics, which was phenomenal, which was actually kind of a return to telling stories for everybody instead of just these horrific deconstructionist fables where he tears apart everything that we once knew and loved. But anyway, he's saying some words that strike true to me because if you've listened to Strebo on any of our platforms, whether it be here on Indie Film Reviews or over at MVP Mutant Radio or read anything that we've written in, that I've written. I always say we when we're talking in this kind of professional sense, or anything that I've written, whether it be on a website or a fanzine or what have you. You'll hear me at some point or another tell people that I don't like fan films or the ideas of fan fiction and that people should create something new. The whole point being that we need new stories to inspire new generations, simply put. Okay, so if all we do is copy what's come from the past, then we'll never get anything new to inspire the future. Okay, it's just kind of a never-ending death spiral of imaginative insolvency. So let's see what Alan Moore has to say about it. With his wild man, Merlin's beard, and distinct Northampton tones, Moore's speaking style is oddly comforting as he holds forth, "If you write every day, you are a writer." The co-creator of Watchmen, From Hell, and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, to name my favorite Moore works, tells the crowd. Some of his advice is pretty standard. Write every day. Be self-critical. Don't worry about money when composing. Well, that's true. That's all good advice. But Moore also breaks out of the old adages and is frank about the publishing world as he perceives it, pointing out that many of the famous, quote, well-known authors out there, quote, have nothing to do with writing, casting shade on popular works like Dan Brown's and calling the industry a mess. Dan Brown being the guy that wrote all that Holy Blood, Holy Grail, all that angels and devils and that kind of stuff. Calling the industry a mess, which is true. So what's a hungry writer to do? Self-publish, saith the wizard, which I completely agree with 100,000%. Publishing today is a complete mess. I know brilliant authors who can't get their books published, Moore says, explaining that many publishing houses are afraid of taking risks on fiction. Moore's solution, publish yourself. Don't rely on other people. Yeah, absolutely. That's our motto at MVP. Publish yourself. Create your own works. It's rare and refreshing for an established writer to promote the potential boons of self-publishing and be honest about their perception of what lies behind the industry curtain. Of course, we expect some eccentricity from Moore, but we prefer this earnest truth-telling over the grumpy old man performances he's given more recently. The video was recorded in 2011, which means we may be in need of a time-turning spell. More of this old Moore, please. Yeah, well, wow, that was 8 years from the time of this recording. Gandalf's cousin makes some good points. But I have self-published, and without any kind of marketing budget, I have hardly any sales. Maybe I'm just a bad writer. Well, you know, there's some truth in that, but it is possible to use social media to promote yourself. But the work ultimately has to reach people. It has to not seem derivative. It has to spark their imagination. I mean, that's always been the big challenge. It's easy for us as creators to sit back and just say, oh, well, if I was being published by Marvel or Blumhouse or whatever, I would, I'd be a multimillionaire. It'd be so easy to sell my books. But it's not. I mean, pretty much everybody that's made it into these industries made it at some point by capturing someone's imagination, by producing hopefully something that was original content. Now the problem is when they get into, my darn cat is almost laying on the freaking microphone. So if you hear him like making weird noises, that's him, not me. But you know, if I put him out of the studio when I do these recordings, he'll sit there and meow at the door. So what can you do? It just made me lose my train of thought. But the problem is when people get into these publishing houses, these big companies, whether it's Disney, Marvel, DC, Warner Brothers, the various book publishers, what have you, is that they are funneled and inspired and encouraged, not inspired, but encouraged to write in a more acceptable, we'll call it a house style, because Marvel kind of has its own style, DC has its own style, when speaking of comic books at least. And, if you want to talk about like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, these are easy talking points, okay? Though there are plenty of other examples out there. Or like the MCU, you feel like they're becoming formulaic, big colorful action balanced with goofy, bathos, inappropriate humor. Now the current trend is becoming women strong, men bad, so everything's got to kind of be written with that tone in mind, such as like the recent Captain Mediocre movie, where, they essentially just clowned out every male in the movie. The almighty Nick Fury was just a clown through the whole thing. Meanwhile, Captain Marvelous was saving everybody's bacon, which is fine. You can have stories about heroes saving people, but you don't have to insist that all the other heroes inside its realm of influence or trajectory or what have you. You don't have to insist that they all have feet of clay, that they're all useless, that they're all worthless. I mean, the world doesn't work like that. Heroes inspire other heroes. It's okay for one to inspire another. It's okay for one to strive and try and to fall short through no fault of their own, and then someone else to come along behind and pick them up and carry on and complete the journey with them or for them. It's just bad writing when they constantly have these heroes with feet of clay. All right, so let's hear what Alan Moore has to say. There he is.
That I'd give you would be, remember that being a published writer is no big thing. Just look at all of the published writers that there are on the bookshelf. Look at the Jeffrey Archers, and look at...
So I don't know if you can hear this or not, but he's saying being a published writer is no big thing.
The Dan Browns, and think, these sell millions of copies. And then think, and the Sun is the biggest selling newspaper, and the Spice...
He says, look at somebody like Dan Brown or a article or a newspaper like The Sun, and they're the biggest selling newspapers. He's basically implying that they're all rubbish, as they would say across the pond, or as we'll say, garbage.
Still got to number one. There is nothing about being famous or well-known or rich that has got anything to do with writing. So if you write every day, then you are a writer.
There you go. There's the mantra. If you write every day, then you are a writer. Write every day, you're a writer. That's pretty much it. When you create something that truly touches upon the human condition, that shares, that shines light upon the far reaches of the human psyche, you can reach people. I know we're in kind of this dismal world right now where we're constantly inundated with information in the digital age, and it seems like only the stupid survive and make it to the top. Like, the dumber a video or a book or a movie or TV show is, that the more popular it will be, the more popular it will become. And you see those kind of trends flourishing across the internet and in the real world. But you have to realize that those are just trends, that they're transient, that they're ephemeral, that they don't last, and they will change. But there are concrete truths about the human condition that, when communicated, that people will respond to it.
You know, I was a writer before I got a job doing a little comic strip on sound. The thing is that now I'm a writer who can do it all the time. That's the liberty of having work.
So he says he was a writer before he got the job writing comics. I guess that was his early work for Warrior magazine. And he says now he's a writer that can do it all the time.
You should also try and remember to be critical of your stuff. Don't beat yourself up, but look at the stuff and think.
He says, be critical of yourself, don't beat yourself up.
However good it was, think I could probably have done that better.
But think you probably could have done that better. These are all great words of advice here.
You'll know where the weaknesses are, the little bits that don't seem as sparkling, you know. Do it again, or next time you write a story, try and make it a little bit better.
Yeah, so he said, well, the next time you write a story, try and make it a little bit better. These are all good words of advice. Definitely be critical of your own work.
Or next time you write a poem, try and make it a bit sparser or more decorative or whatever the quality is that you think that it's lacking. And it will take a long time. I mean, but when you look back at the work from a period of, you know, if you live to be my age, say, I mean.
Again, I apologize if you can't hear the video very well. This isn't my video, so I'm watching it, sharing it. Let me click over to the actual page here.
I mean, that's a long time, but.
So we can credit Adam Baker here, who must have filmed this when Alan Moore visited the St. James Library in Northampton on Save Our Library Day. There you go. So we'll give him a like. So definitely check out Adam Baker. All credit to him for posting this video.
You'll find that you look back at stuff that you probably dismissed and thought was kind of a bit lame. And you'll think, with older, kinder eyes, you'll probably think, actually, that was pretty good.
He says sometimes with time, you'll look back on something that you dismissed that you wrote in the past, and you'll think it's kind of lame. But as time goes on, you can look back at it and think that, yeah, there was a good idea there.
You know, and that's the main thing. Write every day, or as near as you can manage.
Write every day, or as near as you can manage. Sorry, I keep French kissing the microphone here for some reason because my cat is messing with me.
Be critical of yourself and always try to improve. Don't worry.
Be critical of yourself and always try to improve. That's every day. Every day, be critical. Always try to improve. Always study your craft. Well, that's me throwing that part in. My words and Alan Moore's words are combining in one.
About things like, stupid, don't worry about things like money, but they'll always.
Don't worry about things like money.
Be money worries. Don't worry about them in connection with your work. Sort of just try to get better and better. And as far as publishing goes, my third tip, publishing today is a complete mess.
Publishing today is a complete mess. 100% correct.
I know brilliant authors who cannot get books published.
I know brilliant authors who cannot get a book published.
I know, most of the book publishers, they don't want to sort of take a chance on publishing.
Most book publishers don't want to take a chance on publishing. So much of this is so true, and Clive Barker shared a lot of these same sentiments when I listened to one of his talks several years ago.
Fiction, when they can publish an autobiography of the Stig or something like that. It's sort of, so the best way these days is publish yourself. It's become easier and easier.
So he says the best way these days is to publish yourself. It's become easier and easier, and it has. And even in the last 8 years, it's become so much easier. Whether you want to be an independent filmmaker, you can shoot your own film, you can edit it, and you can distribute it all from your own studio. Same with the comic book. You can write it, you can draw it, you can produce it, put it all together on your own PC or Mac, and then have it published by an online publisher.
You can just go to somewhere like Coolquick. You can take them in your book. They will do a file of it, which you will pay them for, and then they will print 1 copy of your book or 1,000 copies of your book, and the price won't vary, which means that you won't get stuck with hundreds of unsold copies under your desk, which I know a lot of authors who do have that as kind of lost insulation. So that's basically it.
So lots of good advice here. I mean, definitely he's preaching about the modern age and encouraging people to publish your own work. Doesn't have quite so much so many pointed words for anybody actually in the publishing industry or any of the product being created, which is cool. There's no need to. I mean, he's just saying, hey, circumvent it all, create your own work and put it out there. There are ways to do it.
So don't worry, publish yourself. Don't rely upon other people.
Publish yourself. Don't rely on other people.
On the market or the publishing business. Don't rely upon critics to tell you how good you are. You know how good or how bad you are.
Don't rely upon critics to tell you how good you are. You know how bad or how good you are.
You know that somewhere inside you. You just focus upon that and try and make the bad bits better and make the good bits better as well. And eventually you'll get where you want to go.
So there you go. Make the bad bits better, make the good bits better, and eventually you'll get to where you want to go. Alan Moore advice to unpublished authors. So there you go. Look at this. 1.4 thousand likes, 6 dislikes. Like, why would anybody dislike this? Oh, how dare he say, publish yourself, that hippie tree hugger. That's just, this, it's the internet for you. That's people. I mean, there's people with a lot of hate out there, and the internet gives them reach across the world to easily spread their hate. Well, whoever it is that disliked those videos, you need to focus on you, man. Make your own life better. So there you go. Alan Moore preaching to the choir over here at MVP and Indie Film Reviews. That is for certain. That's for certain. Definitely preaching to the choir, Mr. Moore. Definitely longtime fans of his work. If you're not familiar with Alan Moore, definitely recommend you check out, for superhero stuff, check out Miracle Man, Swamp Thing. Killing Joke's pretty far down that list. Anything from ABC. If you love metaphysical, esoteric works, you stop it. Cat's messing with me again. If you love the esoteric, metaphysical works, his work on Promethea at ABC is mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. And then Watchmen. I mean, Watchmen is just a bible for how to do comics properly. It's so layered and so rich and filled with texture and nuance. It's just a phenomenal book. So anyway, thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me over on Twitter. Join the conversation over on Facebook. Give me some feedback. Let me hear some things you'd like me to talk about or review in the coming days and weeks as we move here towards the end of 2019 and prepare to approach 2020. This is Indie Film Reviews. I'm Strebo. Thanks for watching.